10. Ram Dass. The attic window was the only place where one could see beautiful sunsets, full of colors. When it was at all possible to leave the kitchen without being missed or called back, Sarah stole away to her attic and, climbing on the old table, got her head and body as far out of the window as possible. It used to seem as if she had all the sky and the world to herself. No one else ever looked out of the other attics. There was such a sunset as this a few days after the Indian gentleman was brought to his new home, and, as it fortunately happened that the afternoon's work was done in the kitchen, and nobody had ordered her to go anywhere or perform any task, Sarah found it easier than usual to slip away and go upstairs. She stood on the table looking out. It was a wonderful moment. A deep, rich yellow light filled the air. The birds flying across the tops of the houses looked black against it. She suddenly turned her head because she heard a sound. It was an odd sound, like a little chattering. It came from the window of the next attic. Someone had come to look at the sunset as she had. She saw a head and part of a body, but it was not the head or body of a little girl or a housemaid. It was the picturesque, white-turbaned head of a native Indian. A Lascar, Sarah said to herself quickly, and the sound she had heard came from a small monkey he held in his arms. As Sarah looked toward him, he looked toward her. The first thing she thought was that his dark face looked homesick. She felt absolutely sure he had come up to look at the sun, because he had seen it so seldom in England. She looked at him interestedly for a second, and then smiled. He smiled back, showing very white teeth. At this moment, his monkey suddenly broke loose, and actually leaped onto Sarah's shoulder, and from there down into her attic room. It made her laugh, but she knew he must be restored to his master, and she wondered how this was to be done. Would he let her catch him, or would he refuse to be caught, and perhaps get away and run over the roofs and be lost? She turned to the man, feeling glad that she remembered still some of the Hindustani she had learned when she lived with her father. She spoke to him in the language he knew. "Will he let me catch him?" she asked. She thought she had never seen more surprise and delight than the dark face expressed when he heard familiar words. At once Sarah saw that he had been accustomed to European children. He said that he was grateful to Missy Sahib. The monkey was a good monkey, but unfortunately he was difficult to catch. If Missy Sahib would permit Ram Dass, he himself could cross the roof to her room, enter the window, and get the little animal. "Then come," she said. "He is flying from side to side of the room, as if he was frightened." Ram Dass slipped through his attic window and crossed to hers, as lightly as if he had walked on roofs all his life. He slipped through the window without a sound. It was not a very long chase. A few minutes later, he sat chattering onto Ram Dass's shoulder. Ram Dass thanked Sarah. She was sure that his quick native eyes had seen the shabbiness of the room, but he spoke to her as if he were speaking to the little daughter of a Rajah, and pretended that he observed nothing. When he had gone, Sarah stood in the middle of her attic, and thought of many things his face and his manner had brought back to her. It seemed a strange thing to remember that she had only a few years ago been surrounded by people who all treated her as Ram Dass had treated her, who were her servants and her slaves. It was like a sort of dream. It was all over, and it could never come back. She knew that Miss Minchin intended that her future should be so. So long as she was too young to be used as a regular teacher, she would be used as an errand girl and servant, and yet expected to remember what she had learned, and in some mysterious way to learn more. When she was older, she would be expected to drudge in the schoolroom as she drudged now in various parts of the house. They would be obliged to give her more respectable clothes, but they would be sure to be ugly, and to make her look somehow like a servant. Then a thought came back to her. She straightened her thin little body and lifted her head. "Whatever comes," she said, "it cannot change one thing. If I am a princess in rags and tatters, I can be a princess inside. It would be easy to be a princess if I were dressed in wonderful clothes, but it is a great deal more of a triumph to be one all the time when no one knows it."